While grinding my claws on the side of my command post, I tapped the button for the intercom. "Second officer, call forth Eugene the Tiny One. More punishments are due." "Your will be done, Supreme Commander." The second officer responded with a snarl and set off to drag the sad being to the bridge. Several minutes passed before the second officer showed up, throwing a disheveled Tiny One to my feet. I noticed a lack of tearing of the Tiny One's uniform. I would need to reprimand the second officer for being too lenient on those that are lesser. Clacking my claws now on the armrest, I deigned to address the Tiny One that was swaying back and forth. "Tiny One, do you know why you have been called forth?" The Tiny One did the proper salute of his peoples by raising both fists outward toward me, palms in supplication, and then lifting middle fingers on both fists. At least that was one thing about all the Tiny Ones. They paid their proper respect almost every time. After a moment of waving his fists around in respect, he responded, "Sorry, I was sleeping and don't know what is going on. May you enlighten me of my wrongdoing, sir." Scoffing, I raised a claw high. "Engineering noticed what you were doing with the display there. Again, I thought the note on your biological needs were exaggerated, but must you do that in a public place? It is unbecoming. You have a private quarters for a reason." "Well, Supreme Commander, the screen in my cabin is too small and my needs are hyper-aggressive, you see." The Tiny One's face displayed sorrowful look by raising his lips at the corners, showing his teeth and then winking one of his eyes. Hearing a beep, I see that Communications Officer Shiraka sent a notice to my console, speaking out of turn. That species didn't really speak, so it was quite the surprise I was forced to have her on my ship in that role. I would have punished her for her insubordination if I didn't find her so revolting. The Tiny One had once said something about her being a hentai reject, but I had no idea what that meant. There was no way I was going to go through the files of the Tiny Ones, as most of it was the stuff of terrors. Looking toward the communications officer, I couldn't help but shudder a bit, trying to figure out why a species would need so many tentacles. Looking away at anything else on the bridge, I focused on the ceiling and quickly asked, "Communications Officer Shiraka, you have a suggestion?" A robotic voice spread over the bridge. "Yes, Supreme Commander. As you know, an entire wing was converted into my living quarters. There is vacancy enough for several others, not to mention a tiny one. Also, the room right next to mine has a huge screen, much larger than could be found in engineering, that would be perfect for him. I'm sure it would help stop his public displays, and if not, I'll be there to keep an eye on him." Maybe I could make do with the screen in my room. I promise there will be no more incidents." The Tiny One responded instantly, before a decision could be made. Chewing on my claws, I looked down at the Tiny One, and could see he was in distress. I couldn't blame him. The idea of being unconscious while close to so many tentacles was the stuff of nightmares. Though maybe it will help curb his need to do unspeakable acts. "That's a great idea, Communications Officer. Just file a report if there are any problems." The robotic voice sounded off again. "Oh, I'll be sure to get recordings to attach to my reports." I decided then and there to make my second officer review said reports in the future. "Sounds good. Go ahead and show the Tiny One to his room and let him mark his territory, as they say." The Tiny One showed his respect to me vigorously by waving his fists with raised middle fingers much longer than usual. I was so distracted that I forgot about his punishment. Then again, maybe this would be for the best. There have been lots of reports across the fleet about the Tiny Ones getting into trouble. A recent report about one imbibing a controlled substance, stripping almost naked, somehow escaping security and passing out in a restricted section. The Tiny One apologized for what they called being drunk, and leaving vile imagery on the screens that required specialists to remove as only they could tolerate it, without purging their undigested meals. "Second Officer, I'll be in my quarters if you need anything. Now that we are in the Tiny One's region of space, I'm expecting a call from their leader," I announced before leaving the bridge. Only a few moments pass after reaching my quarters. I accepted the communications request. On the screen is an elderly Tiny One with silver hair, quite distinguished and demanding respect. So much so I almost made a mistake. "Greetings, Emperor of Who? Tiny Ones." Thankfully, I quickly catch my mistake. I could never understand why they wanted to be called the Tiny Ones. It makes them appear so weak. While true they are the shortest alien species, it is not so exaggerated to demean themselves. The Emperor just nods his head, a lesser form of respect their kind holds. I can't really blame him as his position is a dignified one, and I'm just a supreme commander of a fleet. Even if the tiny one is from a lesser species, respect must be paid with respect. I look at the tiny one on the screen and speak with authority. By the Council's orders, this communication is private. I've been informed of a unanimous decision that they have agreed to give your species full immunity. As long as you inform me who has been providing you with advanced technology beyond your means. The Emperor shook his head. I'm sorry, Supreme Commander. I swear to you that no one has been sharing anything with us. Our advancements have been through our own hard work. When we put our tiny heads together, miracles can happen. Emperor, I'm sure you will understand that the Council does not believe in miracles. It's impossible for your rate of advancement. There are very good reasons why there are edicts in place as they are for your own protection. In the ancient past, there were so many lesser races that changed too quickly, didn't understand the dangers of technology, and not only destroyed themselves but others. Progress doesn't happen overnight. Please reconsider and share with me who it is, even if it is a member of the Council. The tiny one sighed. Supreme Commander, I'm going to share with you a secret about humanity. We have always imagined the impossible, and much time is wasted trying to understand it. The reason our advancement was so slow before is because of all the wrong turns. By which I mean we can easily see what is possible now. Knowing what is possible makes all the difference. That rules out so many things and lets us focus our direction. No one is sharing anything with us, not someone from your council or anyone else. So just knowing something is possible has increased your level of advancement. That doesn't make sense, but I'll share this with the Council. Thanks for your time, Emperor. I then break off the communication and my thoughts are left in turmoil. The idea of a species only seeing something as possible, and then quickly replicating that technology, is terrifying. Back on the bridge, I calmly state, Helm, take us back to Council space. Of course, I was anything but calm, but I had to keep up appearances. Sitting back in my command post, I worry about this new revelation. Also, what if we pretend something is possible, and the tiny ones somehow achieve it? My thoughts are interrupted soon after. The second officer walks up to me and salutes. Supreme Commander, I just received a report about ship X-39224, concerning a tiny one. While you were busy communicating with the Emperor of Tiny Ones, there was a teleporter accident. Nothing serious, but security noticed an alert of unauthorized access to the teleportation control subsystem. When they arrived, they found a female tiny one without any clothes. It took a while, but she explained that she had just teleported and her clothing was missing, so she attempted to retrieve them, believing it would be in the teleportation device somehow. I can't help but grimace. Let her know we are sorry for what happened. Make a fleet-wide notice about the possible glitch and that we are looking into it. Also have engineering install a replicator in the transporter room until the glitch is fixed. I feel ashamed by what happened to the female tiny one, as you know they are more modest like us in regards to nudity. If it had been a male tiny one, then they would have likely just walked naked throughout the ship without a concern for others. Thinking about it a bit more, I continue. Also put up a sign that says teleportation is no reason for nudity. Please use the replicator if required for proper clothing.